Okay, so let's talk about potential and mastery and really seeing how far you can go with your hockey development. And so I want to start off with a story that I heard from a guy named Alex Hermosi. He's in the business space, but I thought the story translated so well to hockey and to really anything that you're pursuing. And so it's the 20-year master. And so a young samurai once asked a Zen master, how long will it take to achieve mastery? The master replied, 10 years. The samurai, eagerly to speed it up, or really wanting to speed it up, asked, what if I work twice as hard? Can I get there faster if I practice day in and day out? Do I go day and night and just double down? Then the master replied, 20 years. When the confused samurai asked why it would take longer, the master explained, if you have one eye fixed on your destination, you only have one eye left to find your way. And I see this in hockey every single week. I see this in myself at times, and I saw this in myself when I was playing. I see this in players when I talk to them almost every single week. It's very consistent. So many players are obsessed on, they want to get to the NHL faster. You want to get to the next place. You're usually the one who ends up falling behind, though, if you do this, because you skip the things that matter. When you're trying to rush somewhere, you rush your development. If you chase the quick fixes instead of building the key habits that matter, then what happens is you may work on a skill that translates to the current level, but it doesn't translate to the next level. And then you get stuck at that level. You get stuck at this place of, I can't move forward because I've been so focused on trying, and I spent so much time focused on, well, what's going to just get me there as fast as I can, instead of thinking, well, what is going to prepare me for the next step and the next step? And so sometimes you may actually have to take a step back. Sometimes you might have to play even at a lower level to figure out your game. And this goes for players at younger ages. I went through this when I was in my minor hockey career, and I wish I had realized this a little bit earlier, that I played AAA throughout, and then I ended up having an opportunity to play at the AA level because I had a shoulder surgery. The coach wouldn't let me try out. The coach told me I had a spot. Then he said, yeah, no, we're not going to take you. So ended up cutting me from the team. It went to the AA team. And that year, I had this opportunity to discover a different side of myself. I got to see, okay, I have this offensive side. I have the ability to be a leader. I have the ability to control games and to really help a team win. And we ended up almost winning the provincial championship. We were super skilled. We had this amazing opportunity, and yet the year before, we had almost exactly the same team, or the AA team did, and they didn't do even close to as well. So obviously I was able to have a big impact and get to be the captain and learn so much from that year. And a lot of the things I now draw from are things that I learned through that experience. And it's weird because oftentimes you wouldn't think going to a lower level, doing less is going to help you. For players who are in, it could be minor hockey, it could be junior, it could also be like prep, it could also be you're working your way through college or the NHL, which we'll talk about in a second with one of my D1 guys. This is something that players bump up against, is they don't realize that they actually have the ability to play at a higher level, but their current focus is not on the right thing. And so the key piece here is I want you to start to think about slowing things down. And over the years, I've worked with different players that when they start to slow down, they start to focus on mastering the right skills. They work on their mental game and build up the mental tools to be able to handle different situations. They become more of a complete athlete. They build up good habits, and they focus on what habits do I need to put emphasis into now so I can build the player I need to be. And sometimes you have to slow down to speed it up. A good way to think of this is you can't score a hat trick in the first shift of every game. And so why do we act like in hockey in maybe a week or a month or even a season, we think we're going to make this dramatic jump instead of thinking longer term, how do I stack and stack and stack? And I think this is a major development issue that I see in minor hockey in general. Hockey players are so focused on winning, and they're so focused on, we got to do what it takes to win now. And this costs you later on in your development because, yes, of course, you want to play to win the individual game. But when you think about development, if you're trying to win a championship every year, sometimes you may have to sacrifice certain things. It might be more beneficial for the team if you learn a snapshot, for example, at a young age, because you can roof the puck and put it over the goalie when they're smaller. But you may sacrifice your skating talent and being able to be super effective with your movements, because that might not translate now, but that will separate you in 2 or 3 years. But if the coaches and the team is incentivized to try to win now, it's kind of a screwed up structure, in my opinion, because this is just my thought. I don't really think minor hockey matters that much. I know it feels like it matters now. I know it feels like it's the end of the world. To me, I wish I had have looked at minor hockey as a development path to grow and to build my game, to build myself. If I had a thought of it that way, I think I would have been able to pull back and not so much put so much pressure on, I have to be perfect, I have to be the best right now, and instead thinking longer term of how can I be the best player when I'm 25, when I'm like 30. And the pressure comes off, but then you still attack things on a day-to-day, a week-to-week, a month-to-month, a year-to-year basis with the same intensity, but you change what you attack. You focus on more effective things instead of spending all of your time focusing on things that might not actually move the needle in the long run. They just create this kind of like bump and then you drop back down again. So it's kind of take a step back to take a step forward in a lot of cases. And so if you want to learn more about that, if you want to learn about how to build the mental tools, build the IQ tools, understand how to rethink the way you develop yourself, we do have some programs like the Next Level Accelerator program and other things that are designed to actually help players to build up these tools so that they understand not just how to think about their general development, but how to think about how do I learn? How do I strategize a plan? What does it look like to be patient in my programming? And it takes time to develop this, and it's a skill that so many players lack because we live in this really quick fix, this really dope spiking kind of world where we're used to getting the quick fix. We're used to getting things that are exciting and fast. And if you can shift more into this mode of, yes, of course, each day you want to pursue things with the most intensity you can. You want to squeeze the most juice out of every day. But you want to think about, like, am I squeezing the right fruit? Am I squeezing a lemon when I should be squeezing an orange, kind of thing? And it's a mistake because you can work on your shooting till the end of the world, but if you learn the wrong shooting mechanics, or if you learn the wrong skating mechanics, or if you develop really, really negative mental habits and you never face adversity, well, then it can hurt you. And so that's kind of a mistake you can also make is, well, if you play at too low of a level when you're younger and things are easy for you and you never face adversity, you never challenge yourself, you never learn what it's like to have failure, and you don't develop agency, you don't develop the willingness to go and try new things, to go and make mistakes, you're afraid to screw up, well, that's going to translate into an older player who's afraid to make mistakes when everybody else is closer. And as you move up levels, this is what, when I talk to my NHL prospects and I talk to pros and pro coaches, this is what everybody's telling you, is that it's so close in terms of skill set. Everybody has such similar physical abilities. The difference between the top guys, the middle guys, the bottom guys, it's not that much. And so what separates these players is these little nuances. It's the way they approach things. It's the way they coach themselves. It's the way they learn. And the ability to develop these skills now allows you to have this leverage point where you get more out of your time more consistently. This is what I think when I say players should develop mental software. You should improve on your mental software almost before the hardware, because yes, it's good to have the physical body and it's good to have the skill set. Obviously, like we're all going to be working on that. If you have the right mental software and you're able to learn more effectively, well, it's kind of the idea. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, if I had like, I don't know, an hour to cut down a tree, I would spend like 50 minutes of that time sharpening the axe, and then I'd spend 10 minutes cutting down the tree. And that's kind of how we approach development for a lot of players, in the opposite way though. So instead of focusing on, I want to actually sharpen my mind, I want to sharpen my approach and have the most effective approach, we think, well, I'm just going to bang my head against the wall, or in this sense, use the dull axe and spend way more energy to get less out of it. But if you spend more time sharpening your mind, having the right approach, being effective, psychological immunity, versatility, flexibility to be able to handle whatever gets thrown at you, and also having agency, having the tendency to act without fear of, well, maybe something might not work out, the willingness to lean in, the willingness to do actions, to have a system, to me, that is the skill that's going to carry a player through. And if you have mental blocks, if you have things that get in the way, like, yeah, you may go pretty far, but you're not going to reach your actual potential. And so the ability to distinguish the difference between that, distinguish between, am I building the actual like software that's going to tell the hardware what to do, or am I focusing so much on the hardware that it's holding everything else back? And so start to think about building slower, building the right direction, and then you can be intense. Then you can put all your energy in. Don't waste time doing the wrong thing. Think, reflect, and then act. And I know it sounds scary. I know it sounds, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm not telling you to not have saying don't take action as a core part of what you're doing. But my point is that you basically want to say, okay, I'm going to take action almost first, but then I'm going to always cycle back right away. I'm always going to loop around and say, what can I do more effectively? How can I do either more of the thing? How can I do better? Or how can I do something different? And just looping and looping and looping. I think it comes from having just a base changed mental software, having some way of seeing the world that's more effective. I think the best players in the world just see the game differently. I think hockey IQ is seeing the game differently. They see openings. They see openings on the net. They see spaces to go in on the ice. They see a player skating at them a certain way. It's a filter. It's a perspective they have. And ultimately, those are just mental software. They're things in your head. And if you could do something where it takes less physical energy and gets you more results in the long run, then why wouldn't you focus on that, right? And so that's why I recommend using meditation to calm your system down, then using visualization, mental programming to program the way you make decisions on the ice, program the emotions and the state you want to be in consistently. It's a skill to be able to get into the right state so you can get into a flow. It's a skill to program yourself, and you're programming the skills. It's the skill of learning how to program the skills. And then the ability to be able to focus and center your mind and let go of any other distractions, which meditation is the foundation of that. It just seems obvious to me, right? And this is it's such an interesting thing, because now I want to kind of connect this into the next piece of the conversation, which is the concept of playing your game. And so connected to the point of building your software, building your game in the right way for you, there's this idea of, well, I had a conversation with my D1 client, or one of my D1 clients, and what he was saying is that he was trying to play a game that wasn't necessarily suited for him. And he was trying to play this more offensive game. He was trying to attack. He was trying to kind of hold the puck, be more skilled, and take more risks. And the reason he wanted to do it, and the reason most players want to do it, is because you want to be flashy. You want to show off. You want to get attention. You want teams to see you and notice you. And yeah, at some point that may be important. And for some players, that may be the piece that gets them to the next level. But there comes a time when you have to look at, well, what assets do I have in terms of my physical ability, my mechanics? And this is not something you do when you're like 13. This is something you do when you're in your kind of 20s-ish, somewhere around that age. You got to look and say, well, where am I at right now? And you want to shift from this perspective of, I need to be what I used to want to be, like this dream of being maybe like a McDavid or somebody like that. You may, and I'm not telling you can't try to be an offensive player, but you may have to make a shift and say, what is my game? What is my role? What is my style of play that's going to get me to the next level? So I had a tier 3 junior client who he was putting up a lot of points. He had almost 2 points a game at the tier 3 level. And I looked at his game and I basically just said, you're not going to be able to translate this to a tier 2 level. You need to become a more complete player. And he had the hockey IQ, but he was falling into the trap of trying to dominate at the current level instead of leaning into what is going to get me to the next level. So what did we do? We had to pull back his game. We had to focus on making more effective passes. We had to lower the risk level, increase his ability to control players, to force players to the outside, the ability to make the right decisions as opposed to the offensive decisions that are going to lead to the highest chance of maybe scoring, but also increasing the chances of getting scored on. And when we made this identity shift, we changed the way he saw himself, we shifted his role, well, that allowed us to be able to get him to the next level. We got him to tier 2. He was able to jump, and he played really well. He had some injuries, unfortunately, that kind of got in the way for him, but it was a huge deal. And for him, what we did is we talked about know your metrics. And so what I mean by this is identify what success likes for you in your game based on the metrics you want to have. So it could be turnovers created. It could be your face-off percentage. It could be shots blocked. It could be hits. It could be zone entries with possession. It could be drives to the net with or without the puck. You want to establish what are your game metrics that are going to show that you had a good game. And when he did this, when my D1 client did this, he actually found out from his agent, hey, we've had NHL teams reach out to us. I've had 2 NHL teams reach out to me about your play. And this is real stuff. This is the difference between a guy getting what ended up happening to him is he was playing that way. He had an awesome game. He played his game, and then he had NHL teams reach out. Then he had another game where he tried to play a little higher risk. He made some mistakes, and then he ended up getting benched and scratched. And that was because he got caught up in playing someone else's game. Instead, you have to define, what is my game? What are my metrics? What does it mean for me to have a good game? And then you measure your game based on that. And so why this matters is because you're going to have different people. You're going to have coaches. You're going to have teammates. You're going to have yourself. You're going to have your parents. You're going to have fans. You're going to have all different people who have a different definition of what a good game looks like for you. And a lot of people are going to try to tell you, you need to be this way, you need to be that way. And I've had this happen at player who's an NHL prospect, D1, at the junior level. I've seen it at AAA level as well, where it feels like you want to be more offensive. It feels like the right play is to put energy into trying to be offensive and leaning into that. But what is required and what is going to give you the best chance of success, not just the guarantee, but going to give you the best opportunity to succeed, is leaning into your game, leaning into your metrics. And this is why it's so important to have that stability and write out, what does it look like for me to have a good game? And then you look at, okay, so based on my metrics, did I have a high success rate in the situations that I measure my game in? And then what was the frequency? Was I able to create more and more chances to do those things that I want to do? So you want to go for frequency, the amount of times you make that thing happen, and then the success rate of that thing. And if you combine those two pieces, and this is from Daryl Belfry, if you start to combine those two pieces, you got to ask yourself, well, in these situations, do I need to do more of the situation? Do I need to do just rep it out more? Do I need to just practice the thing more often? Do I need to be better at it? So do I need to do it a different way? Or do I need to actually just do something completely different? Do I need to change the pattern altogether? And there's reasons to do all three. And we talk about this with all of our guys. A lot of these are going to be motivated by, what is my game? What do I need to do to move to the next level? Gaining clarity on that, and then falling in love with that. This is the key, is that Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about this concept. We're all trading on the same currency, and that currency is dopamine. And dopamine is essentially the craving and the feeling that, that's awesome. I love this. Something good's about to happen. Something good's about to happen. And so we're always trading on that. We're always looking to get it. We're doing things to get that. And so you want to get dopamine from playing your game and hitting your metrics, not scoring goals, getting assists in all cases. Sometimes that is the case, but if it's not, then you got to fall in love with your game. And if you do, then guess what? You're always going to be winning when you play your game. And then the key is learning how to make these things more in your control, bringing them into the space of, I can actually control this, as opposed to these being things that are reliant on, if you say the team winning is my goal, no shit. Obviously you want the team to win, but you can't control the outcome of the game. You can only input controllable things in, and then hopefully you win. If you could, and you could control the outcome of the game, you'd have 100,000 goals or 1,000,000 goals to 0, right? That would be if you could control it, but we can't. If not, why would you choose to lose games if you could control it, right? Are you choosing not to win? Obviously not, because you can't control it. This is the whole point. We play sports because they're difficult. We do difficult things, and we'll talk about this in future episodes. It's important to realize that, look, yeah, it might seem like it's not as fun and exciting at first to play the game that you need to play. But if you fall in love with that, what happens is that no one can take it away from you. You're not going to be reliant on, oh, mom, dad, did you guys think I played well? Or, hey, coach, do you think I played well? It's, did I play the game I know I needed to play? Now, the key piece here is if your coach says, hey, I need you to be a goal scorer, and then you just say, that's not my game, and you don't try, and you just play simple, well, that's probably not going to work for him. So you need to kind of link and have conversations. So you need to link this stuff to your coach. You need to link to what he needs from you, the role he's assigned to you. You have to kind of connect the dots and then figure out, are there things that I can do that are more my style and what he needs? And ideally, it ends up being exactly what he needs is your style. But if it's not, then learning how to alter it at the right times and kind of find this happy medium between the two. So it's a more nuanced conversation. There's not really a perfect way to describe this. You have to kind of go through the process. That's what we do with players, depending on what capacity, or we teach you just how to think about it in more depth and walk you through examples and things like that. But fundamentally, it's about really like maximizing your game. And this is a really big concept, is if you take this mentality of, it's not about, okay, how many minutes do I play? You can't control that. Your coach does. You don't want to think about, is it about the minutes I play? Instead, you think, I'm going to make the most of those minutes. I'm going to maximize my minutes. And this is the difference between, a lot of times, this is the difference between a guy who's playing at just like a low-level pro league, or playing like, struggling, maybe like not really able to crack that higher salary job in hockey. And then you look at the guys who make the NHL, who could have probably been more skilled, if probably could have leaned into that more, but they don't give a shit. They focus on, I am being effective when I'm on the ice, doing the thing that I need to do, playing my game. And that can be the difference between a $50K a year salary and multiple millions. And it sounds like I'm being a complete asshole about this, but I'm just being honest. And if you're a pro player who's listening to this, you may say, well, this guy didn't play pro. I don't care. I don't want to listen to this guy. That's fine. You don't have to believe me. You can just go do your thing and figure it out yourself. But if you look at what happens with players, you'll see players who perform better, have way more points it could be in junior or like in college, and they have a ton of points. They perform super well. Go look at the stats. Tons of junior players, tons of major junior guys who had so many points, but then they struggle to make the jump to the next level because they're competing with other skilled guys for that job. But if you have the ability to put up points, but then you learn how to deviate and style your game to fit better for the NHL, then you can take the fact that, yeah, my identity is I have the ability to play skilled, but I can retract, I can pull in, I can simplify the game. Or a better way to think of it is I can just play my game. I can play my unique style, and I can win that game. But the key is really coming to this distinction of, first of all, what is my identity? So who do I want to be? What style overall do I want to play? What are the traits that align with that? So like a personality trait, right? And a personality trait is simply just things you do. That's all it really is. So your hockey traits are, what are the things you do consistently, which kind of bundle into a trait, and then identify all those things you do, like layer out and list those out, and then create a system and a plan to visualize them, do the mental repetitions, to emotionally program and get yourself into the right state to play that style. You line all these pieces up, you get everything aligned, and boom, now you have control. Now you can start to say, well, what habits do I need to have that are going to lead to me doing these behaviors, which are then going to lead to me having these traits, which is then going to lead me to having this identity. That's the trick. That's the secret. You are going to be able to get ahead of everybody if you're willing to be patient, to have a strategy, to plan it out, and to put the pieces together. Play your game, fall in love with your game, and then watch how much further you end up in 10 years from now. But you have to be the long-term player who's willing to wait 10 years to not be successful maybe right now. You might not be the star of the show right now, and you may never be the star of the show, but be the star of your own show. Be the guy who's dominating your game, and then you have this intrinsic motivation, you have this drive, and then the external markers, the money, the opportunities, all those things come because you earn your spot. Then maybe you get to work your way up the lineup at the higher levels. And then now you've built the trust. Now you get the recognition because you get to expand who you are and be offensive. It's just knowing how to manage these things. It's the mindset, it's the mentality, it's the mental software around it. And yes, I will never, ever tell you need to neglect your skills. You need to forget about the physical ability. What I'm saying is that if you have the mental software, you'll get the most out of your physical software or physical hardware. You'll get the most out of that. So just be willing to maybe take a step back, to ask yourself these questions, to reflect and to think, to be a smart hockey player, and watch what happens. Please trust me in that. I don't want you to make the mistakes I've made. I don't want you to make the mistakes other people have made. If you have questions, if you want to go deeper with this stuff, then feel free to apply. There'll be links below. I hope you have an awesome week. I hope you enjoyed your training session or your cardio session or your bus ride or your car ride or wherever you listen to this, maybe your walk. Keep going, keep pushing, keep trusting in yourself. You're on the right path right now. The key is just knowing it's about continuing to take action. It's continuing to reflect, and it's continuing to build your game, to build your identity, and really know that that will lead you to being the best contributor to the team, to help your team win in the long run. But more importantly, I think at least, is that it's going to be able to help you be the best player you can be and contribute the most in the long term at the highest levels and really maximize your game, reach your potential, and just go as far as you can with your career and, make the most money and stuff like that too. That doesn't hurt. So have fun. I'll talk to you soon.